Zoning board meeting for September 9th. If we would, let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, welcome to everybody. Looks like we've got a few people on the Zoom call. So hopefully this will be a fairly short meeting tonight. We don't have a lot of items on the agenda. We'll take as much time as we need. So I don't think we have any public comments that I'm aware of. So we'll move right to the new business of the discuss and vote to approve the minutes from our August 12th zoning board meeting. So did everybody have a chance to review those minutes?
This is Jesse Jennings. All the way down to page 3, number 5, adjourn, looks fine to me. Thank you.
I guess that means no changes.
Not for me.
Roger, how about you?
I didn't see anything that, looks too far out of line.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, Jesse Jennings, I move that we accept the minutes as printed, please.
And do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 12th meeting by Jesse and a second by Roger? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. And I will, just for the record, I'll clarify. Myself is present, Roger Lowell is present, and Jesse Garrettson is present. So we do have a quorum. Ed Herman did call me this afternoon and is unable to attend today as he's tending to his father. Like father today, I think. I don't know. Father, brother, one of the two. It's always between one of them. All right, so let's go to item number 2. Item number 2 on the agenda is discuss possible action on the zoning board proposal revisions from the recommendation of the Board of Trustees and Zoning Board workshop on June 10th. I think through the last meeting, we were able to knock all of those off the list with the exception of the following 2. And the first one is checklist for building permit inspections, including the final inspection certificate of occupancy. And I believe, as we discussed with the Board of Trustees and the zoning board, we talked about how the 1997 UBC code states that we need to have inspections. We don't have any inspection checklists in the zoning code appendix. So I did send to Sarah, and I believe she forwarded out to everyone the inspection checklists from the submittal checklist, different inspections of the checklist that were in the 2012 zoning code. And then I also forwarded out of the 97 UBC code, the list of inspections that are required under 1997 Universal Building Codes. I would just add there in looking in the 97 UBC code, there is no actual checklist, inspection checklist. So that's the reason I pulled out the 2012 as an example. So do we have any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, in 97, it's listed all the 108.1s from the general inspections, record card requests, and how the holder of the permit is to request inspection. right on down to each and final inspections. And then the section 109 certificate of occupancy. And I felt like that covered every step of the building.
I would agree with that assessment. Roger? You have any input?
Well, I've never seen a zoning board handle inspections for building permits. Never had to deal with one. So I'm not sure why we're dealing with something that's part of the building department. But is that where we're going with this? Is zoning now primarily the building department? Is that where we're going?
No, the zoning board oversees the zoning codes. And the zoning code states that we're using the 1997, actually the city ordinance states that we use the 1997 universal building codes. Therefore, we need to have some inspections as part of at least the appendix in the zoning code so that people know what to expect. And then either our current building inspector or future building inspectors have something to go by.
Okay, fair enough. Not very much in here applies to log home building, which is what I did for 40 years, but hey, sewer and water and everything, yeah. Good luck with this. Need some help, Tom? All right, not yet. Secretary, all right.
Well, Roger, it was part of the 2012 zoning code back then. And was being done back then too. And here we are
Oh, yes.
14 years later. And we're not doing it when we should be doing it under the current ordinance and the current code.
And Roger,
Now, are you saying that none of this was followed in those days because we weren't handing out these pamphlets or what?
We have no records that I'm aware of since 2012 of inspections that were being completed.
Oh, so we're approving an inspection process.
I believe it's just to verify the inspections were completed. And when you talk about logging and log
Okay,
cabins,
who's gonna be in charge of this and who's gonna do it?
I would assume it's building inspector. That's who the holder of a building permit contacts.
Well, I think we ought to get Tom's input on that.
Well, I would like to keep the discussion up here. Once we're done with the discussion,
Okay,
then I'll open it up to public comments and I'll start off with our current building inspector.
Anyway, getting back to the log structures on this 108.5.3, you start with your foundations. And then the 108.5.4 is frame inspection. And my understanding by this comment in here under that's title, whether it's a wood frame or a log frame, it will be inspected. And then it goes right on down to sheetrock and on all the rest of the items.
sort of. Actually, log homes were required to be engineered by Colorado State engineered stamped set of plans because they were not considered standard frame construction. So, yes, it wasn't something we had to bring it out in the zoning ordinance. It was kind of pricey. Yeah, it'd been fun just to do it this way. Not worry about it at engineer stamp.
Well, and I think in our previous discussions, when we talked about utilizing the 1997 UBC code, that if a property owner decided to build something greater than the 97 code, then it would need to be engineered. And that would include log homes. That would include homes that have a support wall of greater than 9 feet beyond the 97 code. So it's going to be an engineered plan to begin with.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, along with this code that we have printed here, this uniform building code, I had a terrible struggle with table 1A, building permit fees. The bottom 5 lines, I can kind of follow, but everything above there, it just really looks like it's a terrible high fee.
And I guess I'll point out that in our fee structure, in our utilization of the 97 UBC code, the town still can set its own fees beyond what's recommended in the building permit fees, which we already have the fee structure that we currently use.
Well, I would sure like to see it not exceeding the bottom where it says other inspections and fees.
Mhm. So I guess it's a question then, Jesse, are you suggesting we should go back and relook at the fee schedule? Our current fee schedule?
And I'm just not happy of adopting the first 8 lines. I'm pretty content with the bottom where it's $47 per hour.
Right. So I think where we're at on it is we don't have to adopt the building permit fees that's recommended or that's shown in the UBC code.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't care to adopt those top 9 lines.
Okay. I think what we're looking at, what I sent out of the UBC code is really just the inspection checklists, and then certificate of occupancy that's outlined in the code.
And I feel like we're doing a pretty good job, except back in 22, we cut out the certificate of occupancy.
Right. And we were reminded by the town attorney that we have to have one.
And I believe we should. That was to accommodate a couple people probably.
All right, I'm going to open it up. Tom, do you have anything as a building inspector, some input on? I mean, these checklists were only for an example, not that these have to be used, but
I appreciate this is Tom Gibb, and I appreciate his comment that, our zoning code should be more informative. There's a lot of uncharted territory that is not, of course, you don't want to go off the far end. But, as to, people knowing what to expect when they begin to contemplate a building project, I see no issues with that. I run into that regularly. You know, what to expect, and so, no, I don't have any issues with that. You want to include an appendices that says that here's what you can expect if you build. We have a wide range of categories that we deal with, everything from, storage units, prefab or containers, and then garages, and then, we move up from there to what you were talking about, these much larger homes that exceed and so I have enjoyed a great deal, having engineered plans. And I have liked that a lot. We haven't run into very many things that have not, I don't think I've seen any, only maybe 1 or 2 projects in the last year that were just fine and didn't require engineering. So anyway, that's about all I got to say.
okay. All right, thank you, Tom. How about any input either on the Zoom meeting or in our public that's sitting here? Have any comments you'd like to add?
Chad Barnell here. So we're just trying to have some kind of like record that an inspection happened and we filed somewhere. So if something happened 10 years from now, they could go back and say, well, Rand inspected it or Roger inspected it, and here it is, it's check marked or it's got initials or whatever on it that said that it happened.
So I think where we've got to go with this, and typically, I guess we wouldn't respond to public comments, but I want to address it, is that in listening to our town attorney in the past, when you have a certificate of occupancy, it shows in the certificate of occupancy, it shows you should have a paper trail of the inspections that are done throughout the process. I don't know over the years how well the town of Pitkin has done that in the past. I just know going forward, I think we need to have that paper trail, so to speak, for the property owner's protection, that the construction was done properly, the inspections were done, and we have something on record for it.
Okay, so like on my project, I did the building permit, I got the little yellow piece of paper and the actual inspections are signed off, initialed off, checked off on that piece of paper, which I plan on taking a picture of either or filing it, but thank you.
Any other questions from the Zoom call? Or from our audience here? Okay, then I'll bring it back up to the three of us. Is there any further discussion on the matter of inspections? Do we want to use the inspection checklists that were in the 2012 code? Anybody have any other examples of additional inspection checklists that they'd like to use or bring forward?
This is Jess. I have a hard time understanding why we didn't bring that checklist from 12 to 22. Has there been any ownership of that happening? Did it happen at the zoning board or the trustees, or where did it happen that it got omitted?
It would have, I don't know if that happened. The 2022 zoning code was beyond my time. So I don't know if that happened in the zoning board or on the board of trustees.
I wonder if it happened when the certificate of occupancy was null and void. And that stars at the zoning board. Sarah, was you fixing to give us some input there, were you?
Yeah, my mic's not working. Oh, I've got batteries right here. Yeah, that all happened when just recently you were on the board at that time, Jesse. Brian Holt started out as the chairperson for a little while, I believe. Thank you. That happened at the most recent change. So for 2022, and I do recall that you were on the board at that time. I think Roger might have been on the board at that time. I think Brian Holt was for a little while. If you're highly curious, I could look back at the minutes, but I don't know if it's neither here nor there.
Well, James Sharpton was on board, I remember. And the comments that overrode the zoning board at that time was the only time you needed a certificate of occupancy was for a loan. And then the person with the building was to request it. And so I say, I believe that CYA, we definitely need the checklist right down to the final inspection. So can we just bring the 2012 right into 22 on that, Mr. Chairman?
I personally have looked at the building inspection checklists. Looking at the 97 UBC code, I don't see why this checklist wouldn't at least give the property owner or the contractor something to know what's going to be looked at, and along with the building inspector. So I personally don't see why we couldn't bring the ones from 2000.
Is he wanting to speak, Sarah? Okay.
No, I don't believe so.
He's just in attendance. Okay, I saw
Correct.
his name up there on the, thank you.
Okay, so we done with the discussions?
My opinion about occupancy permit, it is probably the most important inspection done on the house. Insurance companies feel that way, banks feel that way. Next owner of the property is gonna feel that way. The trail of people that wanna know about an occupancy permit is much longer than just your bank. So if you don't get one, yeah, 10 years from now, it's gonna be real tough. Changes, everything changes. So if something's not gonna be right, there ain't gonna be, it just goes on and on. So that original occupancy permit after the end of this project is worth gold. The fact that we don't give it is a big mistake. There's really no, in my opinion, purpose in handing out building permits if you don't do the follow through and finish it. For your client, for the town, for the records, and everything. So I think we should do everything in our power to help Tom or anyone else put the instructions together. I mean, most of it is gonna be your final electric and plumbing, which is state. And then your local stuff, which includes everything from the foundation to the final. And it's really not unfortunately complicated. I don't think this is something that is going to dent the town a bunch of money or trouble in order to do it. And we can follow easily, final instructions. It's really written in these codes.
Okay, I do have a question. This is kind of for Sarah. She might know the answer to this. So if we decide or elect to use these inspection checklists, if we put them in the appendix and say later, a year from now or whatever, we find out that there's something missing on one of the inspections because of, for whatever reason, do we have to do a zoning code revision on the appendix? Or can we just revise the checklist
I believe the document is accepted as a whole,
with?
so I would be inclined to think that the whole thing would have to be revised. But I'm not 100% sure.
That's my take on it as well. I guess what I'm looking for is an easy way, if we possibly need to update the inspection checklist, so we could.
Well, the board has, Mr. Lowell has brought forth potentially separating the zoning and the building departments. It is possible that the zoning board could consider just drafting a separate document that has all of the building related items in it, because that would not be adopted the same way as a zoning code would. The zoning code is quite a process to adopt, but if you were to adopt, for example, a building code, put in the inspections, put in the permits and all that kind of stuff, that would be easier to open up and revise as needed. So that's a consideration.
Mr. Chairman, at this moment, we are working on a number of items that will be going to the trustees to be adopted as updates from the 2022 ordinances, which will either be, more than likely be 25 ordinances now. I would like to include it in that 2025 ordinance, and then in 27 or 30, whenever, if there's something comes up, maybe put a standalone to correct our 2025 ordinance.
I'll give my 2 cents on it. And that's probably all it's going to be worth. I don't want to separate out all the inspections, the building stuff beyond the zoning code at this point until we would have a larger building department. I think putting all that weight on that responsibility on one person as a building inspector with the whole building department is too much. So I would vote.
Sorry, I don't think I was clear. I wasn't suggesting to make a one-person building department. I was just suggesting making it a second document. That's all.
Okay. So in line with that, Sarah, is it cricket for me to make a motion to adopt the 2012 checklist for the inspections, including final certificate of occupancy? And that will go right to the trustees with everything else we're recommending.
Are you asking me if you should do
Is
that?
that your motion?
That's how I would like to word it. I don't know what the proper way of wording it is, but I was happy with the 2012 checklist. I thought it fit very well with the 1997 UBC. And so that is my motion on this item,
Okay.
would be to take the 2012 checklist and adapt it right into the 2022 that we will be redoing in probably 25.
Can we add to that as far as where to put it, where to place it in that 2022?
I'm open to that.
Yeah, you certainly can. I don't think that's necessary to be part of the motion. It might make it a little wordy. I think
Okay.
you can just direct where it goes, but
Okay.
the fact that you're choosing to use those, I think that would be
Okay.
part of the motion.
That is my motion then, Mr. Chairman.
This is it.
We may just be having internet problems. It's
Could be.
done that 3 or 4 times.
In and out.
Sorry about that.
All right, so we have a motion by Jesse. I have seconded the motion to where we include the checklist from the 2012 zoning code of all the different inspections. I include that in the latest revision. So that's the motion and the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
I'll say aye, maybe conditional a little bit, but, on, the acceptance from, building department.
And I think,
May I just interject? If you're fine with it, it's gonna go to the board of trustees, and Tom is a part of that right now.
Okay.
So you could probably just approve this motion, and he will have an opportunity to speak again and vote on the revisions that you're putting forth tonight.
Yeah, sounds good. Oh, yes on that.
Chair, did you vote aye?
I did.
Thank you.
So we have a 3-0 vote to include those in the 2022 zoning code updates. All right. So then the next one, section 18C2C. I didn't put the page on it. Okay, so 18C is variances under 2C. So 2C is that when a variance is requested, notification of variance requests shall be mailed via USPS first class mail no less than 10 days prior to the meeting at which a variance request will be considered to adjacent property owners at the address on record with County of Gunness. I think Sarah's the one that brought this up, in that in a couple of the variances, when she has mailed out the variances prior to the meeting, 10 days prior to the meeting, the people getting the variance notification didn't receive it until after the meeting.
Right, so it's kind of a twofold issue. One is that the mail is just quite slow.
Yep.
And that's not something that we can solve. However, what I think the 10 days prior is reasonable because typically it does allow for the items to arrive in time for people to make comments if they want to. The issue is more item B is the 15-day requirement for holding the meeting. It's a 15 calendar day requirement. So for example, if an item comes in on Thursday, that means I have to mail letters by Monday, and which means I only have Friday to do them. And so it doesn't really give me time to look up all the addresses. I have to get on the county assessor's website. I have to see who's process adjacent without respect to alleys and roads. And so really I only have a 5-day turnaround to do that. And if it's calendar days, then sometimes that includes holidays, weekends, or days when I had already planned to be out of town and just not able to turn it around that quickly. So what I would request is that rather than holding the variance meeting within 15 days, we extend that to possibly 20 or even 30 days.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One of the things that Sarah touched on that my question, going back to see as posted on our agenda, is it doesn't specify whether it's calendar days or work days. And so I'm assuming the 10 days that's listed in C is calendar days, but I think it should be added, no matter what we do with B.
They're kind of interdependent though, because you can't have 10 work days within 15 calendar days unless you want less than a 1-day turnaround. So either the 15 calendar days needs to be work days, business days. And item C could be possibly 10 business days that might work. But really, they need to not be so close. We need to have one of them greater or one less, and we can't really go much less if we're mailing something via the postal service.
so I guess what I'd recommend is doing the B at 20 calendar days of receiving completed variance application to hold the meeting, and then modify C to say the letters be mailed no less than 10 calendar days prior to.
Yeah.
So they're both on the same terminology.
Thank you.
And I'll ask Sarah, the town clerk, does that sound like that would fit?
I think that would make all the difference, yes.
Roger, you have any thoughts?
Well, yeah, some variances require, adjoining property owner input. Such as written permission to, sideline boundaries and get it. I'm not sure exactly what we're trying to do here with notifying, specifically who we're notifying. The guy across the street probably had nothing to do with whether your variance between your next door neighbor is compromised by a variance, et cetera, et cetera. So how important is it for those people to be notified when they probably don't live here, they probably go to winter here, et cetera? We could drag this process of variance on forever if everyone in the world's got to be notified. So I think we should take out somehow to explain who is the primary people that have to be notified. More so than just joining property owners. And then we can get more specific about how much time these people need. If they're joining property owner or something, they have to talk to their attorneys or various, SWAT, relatives, whoever. Some of the property is owned by multiple people, corporations, who knows what all, yeah, it gets way more complicated than, what we're trying to figure out here. So I think we should not restrict our process to a certain number of days, and we really are gonna fail doing this every time something complicated comes up. I think it's more important that it get to the board in a reasonable period of time, the zoning board, so that we can start putting our heads together on how we're gonna solve or resolve a certain issue, whether a variance is required, and what approval with adjoining property owners or the town, or which requires town council input. It gets very complicated, and so yeah, I don't know how to leave this open-ended enough so that we've got flexibility. You don't want to hurt anybody on either end of this, the applicant or the town or the neighbors, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree, Roger. Now, but getting back to our bullet point here, in C, you mentioned streets and alleys. The rest of C says 10 calendar days prior to the meeting at which a variance request will be considered to adjacent without respect to alleys and streets. So yes, a person across State Street or across Main Street or across Quartz Lane or Aspen Lane, all of those will be notified, not just the side by side property owners. Does that answer your question?
Well, I read it that way, and I remember when that was put in that way, and I questioned it at the time. You know, how far down the street are we gonna notify?
I believe that is adjacent and across streets and alleys.
Street between properties that's 80 foot wide is not adjacent.
Well, it is when you consider an OWTS with 100-foot setback from a neighbor's well across the street that's 80 feet wide, your OWTS still has to be 100 feet from that well.
Yeah, and the neighbor's street's got, well, it has to be, 10 feet from his property line as well, so. So we're getting close. I mean, yeah, I mean, it could go on and on, yeah.
So
What you're primarily saying is every septic and well system in this town should have a variance in order to go forward with it, which means notifying all the adjoining property owners to make sure we know specifically where their well, septic, everything is. Right now, we require a handwritten thing, or if we get lucky, a surveyor or someone comes out. Williams is really good. They come out, they find and locate all the adjoining stuff, write a draw up something halfway decent that shows everything within 100 feet of it. If you can be guaranteed of that kind of information, documentation, to me, that trumps notifying all these people unless circles don't match up and they can't get their well or septic on the property without encumbering that 100-foot circle. And then you have to talk to the affected adjoining property owner.
so you're,
Okay.
But you're expecting the adjoining property owner to, after they're notified, they're gonna start pulling their hair out saying, oh God, my neighbor's building, where's my well, where's my septic system, how am I gonna do this? And they don't know, they just bought the property a year ago, they did everything, the property was built, developed in 1949.
May I briefly interject? Part of the interruption. I just feel like it's important to keep in mind that the zoning board does not have anything to do with OWTS variances. But with regard to this particular issue, I think what this does is this gives the public an idea of what to expect from its Board of Adjustment. So nobody thinks that they're gonna turn in a request in June, and then they're still gonna be waiting for it to be heard in September. So this provides some accountability for the town clerk and for the zoning board of adjustments to move things through as quickly as possible. And I think the idea here was really just to make sure that we do have enough time to do our job correctly and just put a little bit more space there so that we have time to send the letters. Once the letter is written, I don't rewrite it 8 times. I just change the address. So that part's very simple. But I think this is just really for accountability and to let the public know what they can expect from their zoning board and from their clerk.
So I will agree with Sarah 100%. When it comes to OWTS, that falls on the Board of Health for any variances there on anything. So that's outside of what we're looking at in the zoning code for the variances. The only thing I'm gonna bring it up because it's a question and it ties in a little bit with what Roger was saying. I'll use my variance that I did on my garage as an example. Is I found out after the fact, I thought the only notification that would need to occur would be the property owner next to me, which I got a letter from that property owner saying he was fine with the variance. And then I didn't know the letters being sent to the other people across the street or across the alley until they called me after the meeting and said, what's this about? It doesn't impact me at all because it's not up against my property at all. So that's my only question is on a variance like that, does it need to go to all adjacent property owners? Part of me says it needs to make sure we cover everybody around. Part of me says that it would only go to the property owners that it would impact. That becomes a very difficult thing to determine, I think. So I'm going to lay more towards it goes the way it's currently written to all the adjacent property owners, even if it's across the street. It's a letter to inform them of something. It's not asking them to do anything. So.
May I just make one more quick comment, just kind of along those lines? Since I do send out the letters, typically people will call the town and a lot of people will call and have questions and they want to know what's happening. And then once I'm able to review and answer all their questions, they typically realize that, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with me, but they just want to know. And really what this does is this kind of takes away the decision from whoever the town clerk would be. So it would be myself or somebody else. If it's not spelled out, just everybody gets a letter. Somebody's going to have to decide who gets a letter and who doesn't, and that leaves room for mistakes and potentially leaving somebody out that might need to know. And so it's easier and probably just a little safer just to send everybody a letter. And then those who are interested can call and have their questions answered, or they can make comments.
And Mr. Chairman, that maintains uniformity when we come to any variance, whether it be OWTS or a well or anything that way. And so therefore, I'd like to make a motion on this bullet point, section 18C2C. On that particular paragraph, I would like to add behind the 10, second line of C, calendar days. And then I would like to also in my motion on section 18C2B, change that 15 calendar days to 20 calendar days.
All right, we have a motion to change the 15 calendar days to 20 calendar days and to change the C paragraph to 10 calendar days to match. Do we have a second? I will second that. So we have a motion and a second to change the 10 calendar days, add calendar to the days on C, and then on B, 15 to 20. Move from 15 to 20 calendar days of receiving the variance.
Yes, not the 15.
Yes. changing from 15 to 20. You got that? You got that all, Sarah?
Yes,
Okay, so we got a motion, we got a second. All in favor say yes, aye,
Yes,
yes.
Yes,
That would be all three yeses, so there's no no's, so that passes. And then the last item on new business, I'll wait for Sarah to catch up.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. The last item on new business is to review and discuss the next steps for the proposed update zoning code revisions. Sarah did send out to us all of the revisions so far that have been made, highlighted in yellow.
There was one I didn't put in because I did not recall where you wanted it, and it was the decision to require the state demolition permit. And I wasn't sure what section. And I may have just been something that I missed, but when I went to put it in, I wasn't sure quite where.
Let me pull it up. I didn't print it off. And I don't know.
Because it didn't exactly
Wait.
fit in building permits. So I didn't know if you wanted to just add a whole new section.
well, the reason I think that in that meeting, I think I was under the impression it'd go under section 17 building permits. Because normally when we tear down a old building is to make space for a new one. And I just now am seeing a old structure being torn down where I don't think that there will be a new home built. So maybe it should not be in section 17. But that's where I initially thought it would go.
Would it make a mess to make section 17 demolition permits?
No, not at all. We could do that.
Section 18 building.
Now do what is?
Have a section 17 right after 16. That would make sense.
Okay, and then change.
Demolition permits, and then building permits would become 18, and then everything.
I could buy that, just move it all down one notch.
Yeah.
That's under administration and enforcement, so.
That starts off with a demolition permit then.
Duties and powers.
Do you want it to say demolition permit or just demolition?
I believe the issue is we do need to acquire a permit. And we mentioned a number of things from trash, dust, smoke, rubbish, nails, when we were talking about this. And we did mention also the nuisance ordinance when we spoke of smoke, I remember. I'm happy to make it a section 17 and then move the rest of the sections down one notch.
So, and just looking back on our minutes from the last meeting, we voted 3-1, carried 3-1 for a demolition permit. And then update the fee schedule to reflect the demolition permit. So it may be that,
We also mentioned following the state permit and not require anything else.
so the motion was the town of Pitkin requires a state demolition permit. I'm sorry, I misread. The motion was the town of Pitkin requires a state demolition permit. That passed 3-1. So the motion that passed was to require a state permit, and maybe that's all we need to.
Okay, so maybe this could go on a future meeting since it wasn't noticed here. However, if I was to read this, I would say, well, who do I give it to? And that would be my first question. Would it come to the zoning board and the building inspector? And so perhaps that would be something that could be discussed at a future meeting, just so we could fill out the section and make it
To define
clear
clear.
for whoever is planning a demolition.
Okay.
This agenda item came from our previous mayor, a request to me back when I was still chairman on the zoning board that he felt like we need to address it within our Pitkin ordinances.
Okay, so we did not have this particular bullet point on the agenda. So I would say we've got to put it on the next agenda, finalize the bullet point. And then I think in the interim, I guess what I would recommend is that the revised zoning code minus that section on demolition permits. We've made the changes to it. Sarah sent it out to us. So I guess what I would recommend is that the zoning board review that document and all the changes. And then at our October meeting, bring forward anything that we see that we might have missed or that we need to address. If there's not anything, we deal with the demolition permit. And then at that time, discuss and make a vote to move on to the Board of Trustees if we're okay with it. That's my recommendation.
And in that conversation, did I hear that the demolition permit be on the agenda for October?
Yes, it needs to be on the agenda for October so we can discuss that and define what we want to put on in that section, what the verbiage needs to be. Then we can discuss and vote on that, and then we can discuss and vote on the whole document. Because we're out of bounds trying to discuss it now and vote on it to say we're good with it on the demolition part, simply because it's not on the agenda.
Can we instruct Sarah to just make that a motion from chairman
Instructor to what? I'm sorry.
to make those comments a motion?
I'm not following you, Justin.
In order to get it on next month's agenda
Yeah.
and along with what you were saying about the other that we're gonna research to make it official so it shows up in October.
Well, it'll show up on the agenda if I remember to put it on the agenda and then I send it to Sarah.
Well, if Sarah makes a note, it'll be more reliable than you probably.
So I think this will be able to do just fine.
I couldn't resist.
It's all right, Jesse. We'll talk later. Okay, so I'm gonna add to the October agenda.
Verbiage of a demolition permit.
Okay. So I've made a note on my current agenda. Now to finish October agenda, so I remember. More than one thing I've missed, so. Okay, so. Do we need to do anything else with that bullet point?
I think so.
All right. Then we go to old business, and under old business is to look at the building permit tracking spreadsheet. Trustee, thank you. We got about 15 recordings. So I know Tom hasn't been at the last, I think, I don't know, the last couple zoning board meetings, so do you mind if I ask you for any updates on any of the building permits? The ones that are outstanding? I'll give you a copy of it if you want. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be
Updates are not
We have several new,
really an issue.
yes. Yeah, I'm not aware of any issues, but.
No, I'm not either. I just want
I'll
to
get
see.
those to you, on the report at the next meeting. Obviously, we've had multiple, containers come into town and those, they get the permit, they checked out, they get the site plan and all that stuff. And they get set and it's over and done pretty quick.
Mhm.
We have bench permits that are in process or still ongoing. Just offhand, I don't remember if I have any closeouts this month or not. I probably do, but I'll have that for you at the next meeting.
Is Pinellas closed? Pinell. Is theirs closed? I know it's an OWTS,
That's
but
not building.
Yeah, that won't be on
That's,
here.
that's the
That won't,
environmental
that,
health agent.
that won't be included on here.
we had checked setbacks on
It's part of the OWTS process,
Yeah.
but we don't have a building permit for it.
it. That was the only one I was questioning.
Um, oh, this, I haven't seen where like Susie's, garage, is that completed?
Who's garage?
Susie Metzler.
No, it's not complete.
Okay, okay. And then, I'm just gonna go back to ones that are beyond 2 years, which would put us, I think Molly gave us an update earlier this year, I believe.
Yes, she did.
That was 2 years.
Daniels is outstanding. But they provided an update. Of
Yes, they did provide an update. Phil gave us an update earlier this year. Oh, there's Daniels. So the only other one that I see on, I think, Tom, you had talked to Dan Hoffelder about the container. Up on,
If I failed to report on that, I'm sorry. The question was, did he meet his setbacks? Is that correct?
well, I don't think we ever found a building permit for the container.
Oh, well, I'll just look through my stuff.
It's old.
It is old. And I'm pretty certain that I contacted him on that and that it came through, but it may have just, I'll look it up.
Okay. All right. If you would, that'd be good. I remember you saying you
He
had talked. to
did
him
get a
about
permit. He paid, so.
Now, who's this?
the storage container for Dan Hoffelder up on 118 Armstrong. The duplex up there.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know quite a while ago you told me you talked to him, but that's the last I'd heard of him. And then
So veteran is not on our spreadsheet?
should be the last item on your spreadsheet.
Oh, yes. Okay, so it is permitted and is paid.
Well, it looked
Correct.
like it was paid. Yeah, that may be a done deal. And then, yeah, Tom, if you got any other new ones that have come in or closed out, just, and I'm fine. When you put them on the report for the Board of Trustees. Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, there was one more. Tom, you had told me what you're doing with the restaurant. Did you send I thought you said you sent a letter. Okay.
You must have typed it out in your head. I did not get a letter.
Try not to put anybody on the spot here.
Well, this is Tom, so I guess that sounds about right. So, we have all watched Bob Taylor down here turn this establishment down here into a first-rate eating establishment. And in being involved in that and watching this, I have determined, it wasn't difficult, that this is too large of an investment, too long of a time frame, and there is no payout. So, change of plan. Now, you've all been here to, can't believe that you didn't. I took great pains to type this out, so I'm sorry. And I will get it to you somehow. So you've all been here to see the Arts and Crafts Show. And we have this a couple times a year, and it's a great day. We have several artists in the valley over the course of the last year have bumped into me and said, hey, what are you doing with that building? What is really appealing to me? And so what I have down there is space. I have lots of wall space. It's also full of my tools. And that's a bit of a problem, but my plan is to get those tools out and to be able to get some door closers on those doors, and sometime in the spring, call this thing done and be able to provide a place where our local artists and some maybe not so close might have a place to display. And I'll just tell you, Mr. Colt Mall has been very excited about this and all over me about it ever since I said, well, you know, that sounds like a good idea. So that's the direction I'm going to head. It changes all the things I have to do right now to almost nothing. And so I will get you a letter. But I hope by springtime to say this thing's done and we're going to have Mark Valley.
All right. Thank you.
I'm not going to run anywhere. I'm going to let someone else decide. Only your primary artist.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and if you send a letter, that'd be great, Tom. I'll keep it on file, but I did update at least the spreadsheet that you gave us an update on it.
All right.
And you talked
First
about
update will work.
it. So
Okay.
I'm okay. I think you did. I think you typed it out. You just didn't hit send. All right. Very good. Then, any other questions on that update spreadsheet? It looks to me like we're down at item number 5. That would be adjourn at 8:05. If I have a motion and a second.
Make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Record time.
Can we leave everything set up? Because we have a meeting tomorrow.
Yes, we can. As far as I know, with PHCA, we can.
Board of Health.
So I have observed on the bottom of